Hi. A bit earlier than I thought I would do this, but anyway. Hi everyone, my name is Eric. I have short hair now. I make a video game called GB Rover, as you can see here. Yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it like that. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it like that. I was just thinking maybe I should. The problem really is, like, once I click out of the window, the game window gets like all messed up. How does this look like? This is terrible, but maybe I can make it a bit nicer. Bear with me here. Like, I have tons of time today, so this is all okay. This might take a moment. Anyway, hi everyone. I make GB Rover. Please wishlist the game on Steam, and maybe eventually, once it's out, buy it. That would be incredibly great. So yeah, what do we have here? I think that would be enough. This will look strange for a second. Just bear with me here. This might. There needs to be a border around this, like for it to make sense. God, yeah, like. I mean, I could also like do this larger and just like not bother, like be fine with my head obscuring the screen or like parts of the screen. That's also fine, I guess. Anyway, wow. So I haven't been like doing like a devlog like this week and other things. Not really because there wasn't anything I could talk about. It was more like lots of stuff happening. Like, the week was like busy with appointments and stuff, and also I was kind of stressed out because today I had like a call with the welfare office. For those who don't know, I get welfare in Germany because I don't have like a stable employment in any form, and they like kind of want to check in on you, what you're doing, and like preferably like try to convince you to like apply for jobs and things. And like, this always stresses me out because there's like this fear of in me that like they like try to do things to, and that like they can do that to kind of like try and push you towards actually, like, for example, like doing things where you only get paid €1.70 per hour, like as like a job training thing, like, and have to work 30 hours per week. And shit like that. And like, there's always this fear in me that like, oh god, something will come and like try and like get me out of like the kind of process I'm currently in. And I just like realized once the call was done how much I was stressing out about this. So I'm kind of like very, very strangely relaxed, and like I'm still like anxious, but anyway, that it was a strange thing. Anyway, the like welfare, the call went fine. They'll let me make games so far, and like, sure, I have to also like try and apply for video game related jobs, which frankly I kind of want to do anyway. Once, like, should I find those that interest me and fit my very strange skill set. But yeah, so that was that, and it was very kind of stressful. But just to talk a little bit about the rest of the game. So I finished extending the stages that I wanted to extend, and I'm fairly okay with them. Like, I'm again, like, there's always, in some parts it feels a bit repetitive, and like we'll see it once I play through this. Also, like, just like shortly, what is it that I want to do today is I want to play through the whole game again. I did this a few months ago already. Want to play through the whole game again and write down everything that I notice that could still use some improvements, or is still kind of missing maybe. And yeah, I did this way back, like to basically say, okay, this is all that needs to be done, and then the game's finished. And obviously the game, I mean, it was finished at that point. It's like it was in a state where it was okay to release it, and what's happening now is just like trying to make sure that, like, working on some details and all that. And so I want to do this again, and just want to go through and see like what else is in there that I could still do, but with like not a guarantee that I'll end up doing everything of this, because I said to myself, I think I said it like in the last like devlog video, that I have like a set deadline like for September 15th, which I now have pushed like forward to September 1st, where I want to basically on September 1st want to make a like basically put a line under it and say, okay, it's done. I'm not touching this game anymore, unless something breaks horribly. And so that I have enough time to basically make sure that the game releases in a good state, that the demo that I want to put out for the Steam Next Fest in early October is in a good state, and all that kind of stuff, that I have like the basically the final marketing push prepared. And that's all stuff that needs to be done, and like starting with that on September 15th is not a good idea. So like giving myself like a few weeks more time to prepare these things, and have like the game like basically in a state where, like, unless something very terrible happens where I'm not touching it again, is a good thing. So I write stuff down, then I'll like after I'm done with the stream, I'll prioritize everything and see, okay, what is the most urgent of this stuff, and what is stuff that is more like, oh, it would be nice if I have the time to get around to it, but if I don't have the time to get around to it, well, whatever. So yeah, also, by the way, what you can see maybe here is like that I did like this morning while I was waiting for the call to happen. I was like fiddling around with the title screen again a bit, like because I didn't know what to do with myself, and like made the like, I think the like the way the boss portraits are displayed a bit nicer, and I also like put the like one boss like in the center, like very far to the back. Yeah, that's not GB Roba. You can see they're looking at you like beneath the logo. That's someone else. But anyway, God, there's a lot I kind of want to talk about. Maybe I'll also like at some point I need to sit down and write something again, cause oh God. So yeah, let's see how long this takes. So, yeah, like the intro stage is mostly in a state where it's done. Like I'm not very like into like doing anything here. I think it's okay, because it's so deliciously pointless. And yeah, God. So maybe like while I'm here, like watch me like not notice something that I would like to have noticed, because I'm going to ramble now. So something I've been thinking about like the last, I don't know, it's something that started to like form over the last 2.5 weeks, I think, like starting with this announcement of like this indie games cartel, like indie games publisher cartel, which like frames itself as being socialist and whatever, and also like further news of like other publishers and very, very like exploitative contracts. And then yesterday a report how exploitative Roblox is as a platform for like creators. Like it was like specifically aimed at children, which is like especially disgusting, but also like considering how often I've seen Roblox being kind of like pushed forward as like a legitimate platform for independent game developers to earn money on and like make games for. I find it incredibly disingenuous to like push this stuff, considering how little money or like how much money the parent company that runs Roblox keeps from the money that you actually earn on the platform. So like basically if you make a game for Roblox, it's probably much more likely you'll end up earning more money if you would put it on itch.io and or make a game, put it on itch.io without any marketing at all, just with random sales from people that maybe stumble over it. Anyway, so like there's that, and then like and I've been thinking about, and then like just like overall like thinking about how risky it is for smaller developers to like exist in this space when basically you have almost no power about like what happens to the platforms you put your games on, what happens to like oh yeah, like one thing I want to try and maybe do a slow down animation when your dash is over. Also, like this might happen a lot, like me talking about something and then realizing I have to write something down. So again, this might be a bit like all over the place in terms of like what I'm doing. So this is something I really like about Celeste. Again, I've been looking a lot at Celeste, like for this stuff, where like it has something where you like end your dash and then like move in the other direction. You can really see how the sprite is like changing like direction but still carrying the momentum forward, and it like again it's another layer of like trying to communicate how your character has weight to it. And like the problem, like I have to see if this works with the like it's not only a question of like finding a good animation for like the visual style and all that, but also how well this works with the overall physics of this game, because it feels different to play than Celeste. Like the controls are like more stiff and less floaty to some degree, because again it's more inspired by Mega Man games, and Mega Man games are like fairly stiff games in like the way overall how they feel to play. So I have to see how well this actually works, or how much like this actually might like be a good idea or just a waste of time. So yeah, that's the one thing. So back to my rambling thoughts about stuff until I I realize I have to write something down again. So yeah, so all of this got me thinking like overall like how much we like all depend on like other platforms, like basically having to make sure that you can still exist in this space when basically all of these platforms really don't care about smaller game developers, and and because capitalism creates this constant pressure to grow and to like fight for yourself, especially when you're like somehow like basically the moment you try to like sell something that you made, you are kind of forced into like becoming an entrepreneur to some degree, even though I'm pretty sure a lot of people would not want that. Like for example, like I'm like in the process of actually like registering my game making stuff like as a business in Germany, because I kind of have to do that for several reasons, and also because like for the like maybe console port of GB Robo, which is like in negotiation, so to speak. I do like for the contract like to be like set up and all that, they need like certain like business data from me, and like I don't have those right now. So in order to actually get a game on console, I need to have this set up, even though I really don't want that. Like, that's not like why I create like things and like why I'm doing this. And but I have to do it in order like to exist in this space, and like to at least have like a way to like earn money legally, so to speak. So you have to set this up, and this comes with like a certain like degree of like basically how you have to conduct yourself and what you have to like build around that. And I feel like it's so difficult to find a way to exist in this space without like getting roped into all of this bullshit. Even though you maybe just want to create things and just want to find a place for your own, and not really like want to become a business owner and want to like employ people and all that shit. But all of this is kind of like pressuring me to do this, because again, in a free marketplace, which like every market under capitalism is basically, there's no distinction between who you like. Oh yeah, or like pause main music when item jingle plays. Also maybe new explosion sound effects. So like, because under capitalism and like how like market operates, there's no distinction between like if you're like one person making a game in your living room or whatever, and you like being a company that employs like hundreds or even thousands of people and making games. And like, for example, this like also like and that creates a certain kind of pressure. Like, if you're like a small singular creator in this space, you have to find ways to like exist. And like there's like two ways like that this stuff usually goes, like when you like don't find like your niche like immediately. Either you'll end up like not finding a way to sustain yourself in there, and then you'll basically have to like are forced to go back into the workforce and earn a living that way. And I don't mean that in any negative way. If people have to do this is completely fine, because like this is like the external circumstances and the material conditions under which we live that force this kind of stuff. Wage labor can only work if you have to earn a wage to live. Otherwise there wouldn't be an incentive for people to, for example, accept like work that is like to them is pointless or degrading or like paid badly or like exploitative to some degree. But because we have to like earn money to live, like again, this is like the like pressure that's created by capitalism anyway. So either you like become a worker, or you become a capitalist, or like essentially like you expand, create a company, hire people that then work for you, who then also don't own the means of production, because you're the capitalist and you own like the results and the results of their labor. And that's kind of like the way things go. And sure, you can find ways around that, and I wrote a blog post earlier this year about that. You can kind of find ways around that, and that you maybe do a Patreon or do crowdfunding like in general, or even or like if you're like don't want to run a company, you form a co-op or whatever, but you're still susceptible to the same market forces. If you run a co-op, you're still in a situation where you have to like compete against companies that are not cooperatives. So you're still kind of forced to like work under the same conditions and have to like basically follow the same set of rules in order to exist. So it's only like this stuff only gets you so far, and it's not something that is an option for everyone. Because like again, this isn't how capitalism works. Because like you create competition, and at some point a crisis will hit, and those that aren't set up in such a way that they're able to like basically pool their resources and like survive like a moment of crisis of like whatever. They will fall apart. Will either get bought out or go bankrupt. And even if you're a co-op, there's like, sure, you can probably maybe mitigate some of the risk, but again, you're still susceptible to market forces. If you're a co-op and you're selling games on Steam, you're still susceptible to the same kind of like requirements that Steam sets, and like the ecosystem that Steam sets, that dictates whether or not like your work will find any kind of success. This text box in the water level needs other colors so that it's more readable. Also, maybe more different texts. Question mark. Yeah, so like depending on like what Steam requires of you, you still have to like make games a certain way, or like again, you're still like forced to compete with larger companies that oftentimes exploit their workers, even though you're not doing that. And it creates this constant pressure to also do the same thing, to also exploit workers or to exploit your customers in some way or another. And that's like a very, very hard situation to be in. So like what needs to be done, like of course, aside from like overthrowing everything and creating like something that works differently, which I'm very much in favor of, but we know how it is, and sometimes this takes a while and all that. But what I think needs to be done really is like trying to create structures that are much more like built around like solidarity between smaller game creators. And I don't mean oh yeah, we like give each other business advice or whatever, but like more in terms of like sharing and pooling resources, sharing knowledge about, for example, publisher contracts and working conditions, and also sharing money underneath, like between one another, like to make sure that like what my success is also the success of everyone else in this system to some degree, and like creating platforms that are owned by the developers. Again, right now the problem is and it really doesn't matter between like where you're selling your games. You're like completely at the mercy of like whoever runs your distribution platform. Even with itch.io, like itch could like decide like from like tomorrow or whatever to like say, yeah, sure, you can set your cut, but like your visibility is going to be affected if your cut is like below a certain point or whatever. And that would like make things frankly worse for people, and you have to be mindful of that. And like again, like itch.io is like a good, oh yeah, I forgot, this also needs fixing, because that boss is kind of stuck in a wall. So like again, to create platforms and systems that are like agnostic from like larger corporations and frankly private companies, because again, like itch.io still is a private company. They might like be nicer for smaller developers, but it's not a co-op. And even if it were a co-op, like as long as the creators don't own a share in the like overall distribution platform and like profits like of each game are shared like among developers, like this doesn't matter. Yeah, like trying to create something that is owned by creators so that the creators themselves can decide like how like the platform works, and where everyone has a vote, and like where profits are shared, resources are shared. Ideally that would be something that should exist, also because it would and that's the kind of problem with this also is and that's again a general problem with capitalism, with like small businesses, and you find this a lot with like within like Marxist literature and like the 19th century, where like talking about petit bourgeoisie, which is like basically the lowest rung in the middle class to some degree, or like in the like bourgeoisie itself, which among other things includes small businesses. And small businesses are in a weird like situation where like they're kind of like where they're in a very precarious situation, basically to the moment some crisis hits, they are usually like falling out of the bourgeoisie and into the working class. So that creates this weird thing where like they are in a precarious situations, and thus closer in like terms of like material condition to the working class, but like mentally their class allegiance is more like closer to like larger corporations, which means that like very often, and you see that with video games as well, where like a lot of smaller indie devs like do stuff that make things actively worse for everyone else involved, because it gives them like a bit more money to keep existing. Like this like stuff like putting your game like on a streaming platform, talking about developing game for Roblox and saying how cool it is as like a new way for indie devs to make money without mentioning the exploitative business practices of the company that runs this platform. Like publishers, like small publishers pooling their resources together and like creating monopolies to some degree in that space. And these are all like things, exclusivity deals for like different platforms, because like that platform gives you money, but that isn't like something that is available to everyone, so only a few people get to profit off of it. That platform can like grab a share of the marketplace and can then make the conditions worse for everyone else, because they have like a more like powerful position to negotiate stuff. And that's all stuff that, again, you as a small business can do that and can maybe earn a living that way and maybe keep existing. But it will like and overall make things for like smaller developers worse. Like there was this like Twitter thread and also like the blog post going around. I forgot the name of the person, but it was one of these like business advice people that like plague video games to some degree. And frankly, that person like he has some nice advice on his blog post. I don't want to like say that everything that he says is terrible, but that part was kind of terrible, where he was talking about how hopeless it basically is to make small games on Steam, because basically Steam disincentivizes smaller games on its platform, like for various reasons, and like a lot of it was being driven by like people kind of gaming the system and other developers complaining about it because it hurt their visibility on the platform, completely ignoring that like the measures that Steam put in place in turn also hurt like developers of like specific kinds of games that are shorter, games that are more focused on narrative instead of like providing a constant service to people and all that kind of crap. And that's again like people trying to get theirs while making things worse for everyone else. And like this also kind of flies in the face of like this like notion that like indie developers are all friends, because like if they were all friends, they would kind of like understand that like everyone is in the same situation, and that the only way to survive in this place is by like collectively trying to make things better for everyone and not just trying to get theirs and like to hell with everyone else. So yeah, we like there needs to be like a way and like a concerted effort to create a space or create spaces where people like are more driven by like helping each other out, like pushing themselves forward, and like encouraging people to make the things they want to make and not what the market dictates that they should make. Because again, I've seen a lot of stuff, and like frankly it was also like part of like me like feeling kind of like terrible about what I'm doing, because I saw this Twitter thread about like him like saying, yeah, okay, if your game doesn't get 5,000 wish lists on Steam, well, you're not going to get shown in the whatever trending like new releases thing or whatever, and that means that like these things don't happen, which then mean that this stuff doesn't happen. And so basically you make a small game or a game in a genre that isn't popular on Steam, well, you're fucked. Have good luck with that, and I don't have any practical advice for that, basically. And yeah, sure, you can. Like, the problem with that kind of approach to this, like, to these scenarios is always, how constructive is this actually? You can acknowledge the reality that basically the, like, platform disincentivizes certain types of experiences. That's perfectly fine, because that's, like, the reality of the platform itself. The question is what conclusions do you draw out of those? And if it's well, you're fucked unless you make a turn-based strategy game, probably with like some kind of deck building mechanic or whatever kind of shit, and like reach these kinds of metrics. But at that point, that's not game design in terms of like a creative endeavor. That's game design in terms of like filling out like a checklist and not like trying to express yourself. If you want to express yourself in these kinds of genres, like go ahead, that's not a problem. But like suggesting that this is the only way you can survive in this place, also completely disregarding that that all of these analyses are always basically post hoc. So they always happen like judging on like data that happened in the past. So okay, for the last 2 years, these genres in that kind of thing and that kind of approach was successful for a lot of people. But drawing the conclusion that therefore it will always be successful for people and that is what you should do, like it completely disregards that now more people will make these kinds of games because that like advice is out there, making all of this advice less and less effective because the mass of products going into that market increases exponentially, and like it creates more competition between each different title, meaning that less of the total pool of like potential users is available for everyone. So it's like you can make this analysis, and if you're lucky, you might still hit the time frame where this might apply, but at some point this will shift. Markets will shift around, and like other products will be like popular with like people on Steam, and then like everyone will say, oh yeah, we should do these games now instead. Like basically this is my secret hope, that at some point pixel art platformers will be the total rage on Steam, which obviously won't ever happen. I'm dead. Ooh, this is terrible. I forgot. Good to know. I don't think that I ever did that. Checkpoints before boss fights. Because I extended the levels, the checkpoints didn't move. So you never set a new one. And that's, again, you can make this kind of business advice and say, okay, you have to do like this one approach is the one that works. But that goes completely against, and I don't mean like just make games disregarding how whatever like the market situation or whatever is. Like again, like if you need to survive, and like this stuff, like to some degree this stuff helps, like understanding the situation you're in and what you have to do is kind of helpful. But basically, like having your own conclusion be, well, if you do something different, you're probably fucked, and I can't help you. Also, just shows how incredibly well, how incredibly just uncreative these kinds of people are, because if they actually knew anything about what they were talking about, they may have ideas how to circumvent these problems. But like you never get this. More like, oh well, yeah, I don't know, maybe if your game's good it will still work, or whatever. And it's like very, very, very thin, like the moment you start digging, or the moment you like even start questioning some of the like statistics they are using, because like as far as I know, none of them try to like differentiate between like team size of like different games and like budgets of different games in different genres, and like who like made these games, and like what actually was the like amount of money that like these games wanted to make, and all that kind of stuff. Because that would like be much more useful, like because again like you're like end up comparing yourself with game developers that probably have much more resources and much more time at their hands, and maybe even are working under completely different conditions in terms of like how they're like treating their like workers or whatever, like if they even have workers. So that's kind of like bullshit overall. But yeah, this is also me like just like needing to like vent about all of this, because I find this incredibly frustrating. And one of the good things of like not having to release a game over the past few years was that I didn't have to like read any of this and could completely ignore it. But again, because sometimes there's like some actual valuable practical advice in there. For example, like how to like properly tag games so that like Steam knows what to do with them, and all that. And like from what I could find, this actually helped, like the like trying to like increase visibility and all that stuff, like even on a small scale. Like these things that I read about actually help with Splinter Zone, as far as I can tell. Like the problem again is always like you do this stuff and like maybe the like increase in whatever sales and visibility was because of like the stuff you did, or like something completely out of your control. There's like always this problem of like creating like pseudo causation, where you think you know the causal relationship between things, something you did and something that happened, but it might as well just be completely random. At least in this situation, is like when you're like one person and you only have your own data to like trust in that regard. But like I feel it did something, because like Splinter Zone like sold like or made as much money, it like didn't make that much money since I think it's like second year or whatever. So there's some value in this, but like I wouldn't trust anyone who like says you have to make your game in a certain like basically in a certain way or in a certain genre, or like it has to like adhere to certain standards, because again like this completely disregards the process of game making as a creative endeavor, and only thinks about it in the way of like a business case. And frankly, if you want to earn money with anything, I wouldn't make games. I would do something else that's a bit more reliable and a bit less annoying. Honestly, but I don't know how other people see this, but I make games because I feel the need to like create something, and also like to like tell weird stories, even though people don't really see where the stories are in my games, which is fine. But this is like why I do this kind of stuff, and why I want to keep doing this. I don't like I wouldn't feel like comfortable just making something and see, oh cool, like it made money, but actually I don't really care about what I did here. It's just like basically this boss is such a mess. You can see that like by the end of the whole like make mini bosses process, I kind of ran out of ideas. But I like overall I like this, like how the stage turned out. I think like it made it much nicer. But anyway, this like so I've been thinking about all this stuff, and how to how to try and create spaces where people can try to find a different way to exist, where it doesn't have to be that you like have to just like basically like your only way to exist is like via like becoming like a business and owning a business and like basically operating like any other capitalist out there, because you can like be what like as good as like a socialist and as well read about this stuff as you want to be, if you're like still performing the same acts as like basically any other shitty company out there. Like what difference does it actually make? Like the same goes for like anyone who like runs around like crying about unionization in the games industry, and they run a business like with a workforce that isn't unionized. So like what exactly is your like is it that you want to do here? And like again, it's very telling also in that respect. But and you have to like find ways to do this, and like this is much harder to do on your own, because again you have so little power about this. But the more people you find that want to do the same thing, and that realize that your fight is also my fight, and that goes like for basically like politics in general. And it's a huge problem that a lot of people don't see that their plights between different groups of people are interconnected, and that there's a common through line between those, like, and that's called capitalism. And that like you could fix a lot of problems when you like pool your resources together and fight as a large unit. And that's the same thing like in games. And like obviously this also won't change the world or whatever, but it would help to create something at least where people don't feel like they have to be like don't feel like they either like the options are either I conform with like the market reality and do what's required of me, or I stop doing what I want to do, because those are the options right now that exist for people. And I don't think that this has to be this way. And I think there's enough energy out there like to make things different, I feel, and that's maybe me being a bit too optimistic, but like otherwise what point would trying to make things better be? Honestly, like what point would there be? And yeah, you have to think about this and like try and find a better way of doing things, because otherwise, like imagine like there's like so much like stuff going on like in terms of like how tech companies are now trying, like this is like what like has been recently being pushed forward a bit more, like all this metaverse bullshit, where like basically they want to create their own virtual basically like completely closed off ecosystems and marketplaces and all that kind of stuff. And if you think about it, and that was also the analogy that has been made in this like Roblox video, which basically Roblox already is one of these like metaverses, because it's a completely closed off system where people can do all kinds of different things, but without ever leaving the ecosystem itself at any point. So, and yeah, and the problem here is that give me a moment. Okay, that's something that you. Where was I? Oh yeah, metaverse bullshit. And yeah, you create these, again, it has been called like company towns, where like you work basically within like the company's ecosystem and get paid, not with like a currency that's like viable outside of this ecosystem. So like people getting like much more like exploited this way. And if we are not careful, this stuff, like, and this is what tech companies are trying to push for right now, like basically trying to create, and this is like also like a thing that I find kind of like interesting to see, how capitalism is now in a state where because like it's completely globalized and there aren't that many new markets basically to conquer like within our planet or on our planet, it now creates markets within markets. Like this stuff like kind of folds into itself. Like it's like you can see this with like in-game like marketplaces and stuff like that. And again, like stuff like Roblox, where you have like a place where people within that place spending their fantasy currency to like advertise and like pay other people to do stuff in. And it's like it still works with capitalist market logic, and it's kind of like attached to like the larger capitalist market, but it's also like a completely closed-off system itself. And that's something that, again, more companies are going to push for because they have more control over it and obviously can siphon much more profit off of it in that moment. And like in that regard, like the 30% cut that Steam takes off of your work it will look like incredibly friendly at that point. Because like, say what you want about Steam, at least you're getting paid. Even if it's not a lot and whatever, but at least you're getting your money, and like the money isn't paid in like Steam wallet bucks or whatever, but it's actually a bank transfer that you get and that you can use. So there's a lot of like stuff that that's and I feel like we need, like as like smaller developers, we need to make sure that we can survive this, because otherwise like we need to find a way to exist mostly outside of like normal platforms, because otherwise like things will get kind of awful. The more like economic pressure like will come, the more like these kind of like systems will pop up. And like I personally count like things like Microsoft Games Pass and like other subscription services like into that as well, because this also will make it harder, like over time will make it harder for smaller developers to find a place. Sure, you could put your game on there, but like considering that it's probably going to be like, you're probably going to get paid not by sold copy, but how long people have played your game. Most people will probably never see any money out of it. Like I can just like talk about like my own experience. Like Splinter Zone is on like some like, I did this back then because I thought, oh my god, it couldn't hurt or whatever. I wouldn't do it again. But like I did sign Splinter Zone onto like a very like early video game streaming platform, and again also because I'm pretty sure no one's using that service. That's another thing. But I think Splinter Zone, over the 4 years since it's been on there, or like 3.5 years since it's been on there, I made a grand total of like $1 on that platform. So basically nothing. And the minimum payout threshold for that platform is $500. So I'm pretty sure like around like $2,100, I might get some money, or like maybe someone will get some money who then owns the rights to my games, because I might probably be not alive at that point anymore. But and if you think about it, and you see it with like stuff like Spotify with like music as well, already, where people are like getting less money than they would get if people would just buy their stuff. Sure, it's maybe less people who would buy their stuff, but the financial gain they would get out of it is more, and might for more people even be enough to actually exist in this space, and like just through the art that they are creating. And like this is something that like is going to like get pushed forward with video games, and is frankly in my eyes not really being handled critically enough. Like I haven't really looked at it like that much, but like at least until like earlier this year, the Games Press people I have been following were still like very much into like what cool of a value proposition Games Pass is and all that kind of shit. And yeah, sure, it is one, but it also completely ignores what this actually is trying to be like in the long run, and it completely ignores that and just looks at the cool shiny thing that's currently in front of them. and it's like very, very, very short-sighted overall. And so there needs to be a way for like smaller developers to like protect themselves at least to some degree against that. It's like, it's not that you can expect this to like destroy like these structures, because again, like these are like still have much more resources and all that, and like capitalism won't be destroyed by like corporatizing independent games development or whatever, but you can still build something where at least people within that space have enough power and control over to decide what happens to their work. And that in itself has value, because it also like gives people like the idea that they actually can determine like how their work is being treated, and that they are not completely have to surrender themselves to like whatever whims like larger platform holders have at that moment. And that would be like basically the ideal like scenario here. And I think that's something again where like there needs to be some kind of push for it. And even if it fails, who cares? Like you have to try something, or otherwise like things will just be still be controlled by people who only have their own interests at heart in the end, only want to create stuff that makes sure that they can keep existing without really caring about anyone else. And there needs to be like something that prevents that. Also, like 2 more things. I kind of want to see if I can make this menu a bit more like nicer to handle. And also, and that's a big one, a possible second phase for this boss fight. I'm not sure if I'll do this, mostly because I don't think that I have the time. But I did have like a nice idea for it this morning, so I just want to put it in here. But it's a very low priority because I already did that whole fight. Redid that whole fight, and I don't really. Oh yeah, also like it now says fight for the landlords when you when PD Rover appears. Again, kind of like trying to ape or like mirror what you do, like but in evil, you know. Yeah, that's me ranting and like maybe taking some notes occasionally. It's not that much, and I have been kind of paying attention. So, oh yeah, there's like a strange bug in the next level. Where if you basically open a door and then pause the game at a certain point, like the wall like behind the door basically doesn't get deleted, like doesn't get removed, and you end up getting stuck. The interesting part is that this game, the like level like keeps your progress. Like, for example, if you defeat this boss here in the boss rush and then have to restart the level, the boss stays dead. So it's not that, like, you lose progress in any way, but it's still annoying because you still have to go through the whole loop. You can't, because there's no backtracking, you have to, like, go through it, like, this way. almost done. Okay, how much is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I think when I did this back in late April, May or whatever, I was around like 100 entries, and this is like 15 or 16 or whatever it was. Already forgot the numbers, but below 20. So much less. Still, of only 10 days with like days off and all that stuff, less than that. Oh yeah, there's still also like, and that might be stuff that I'll do still in September, because it's like outside of like the game has to be done. Endless attack stages and like some music for that thing. Because that stuff, it's not that it is time intensive, but not in the way that, like, for example, extending stages is, or like replacing all sound effects, because this is stuff like that takes several days out of a week, and these other things are things where I could sit down, like after like once September rolls around, I could sit down on one day of the week and just work on these things and get a lot of stuff done, and spend most of the rest of like my time working on things again, like preparing the demo, making sure that like everything works correctly, like creating like comprehensive and like an extensive press list, creating like email templates and like all that kind of stuff, because that's kind of important. Like and yeah, like I really want to try and push this game as hard as I can, because I want to see if like my like I have like the impression, and this might be completely wrong, but I have the impression that this game might actually do much better than like the numbers that I currently have might be suggesting. Like, and that's just purely on the fact that every time that it got more attention, or like things like Twitter or whatever, the results that I got like on the like other side of the equation, like wishlist editions and all that, like were like like much higher than basically the increase in visibility. Like the game performs fairly robust under higher visibility, which to me kind of suggests that if more people would find it, like actually more people would like it than like what my reach suggested, and that the low numbers that I'm seeing are more a function of the size of the platform that I have, and not as much of what this game is. I might be completely wrong. Like again, this is why I want to try and do this as best as I can, just to see if like my impression is like correct. And if it's not correct, who cares? Like I did my best. So it's still going to be fine. It's going to be fine regardless. Also like for my projections, what this game is making, I'm using how Splinter Zone performed in its first month for that. And like overall, Splinter Zone, like compared to like the like estimations and stuff that you can find on the internet, like where you can put numbers in, and I can maybe show this like for a moment because it's like publicly available. But there are like places where let me just make sure that like. Okay, there are places, I think the one is like the one from Simon Callis, or how is pronounced, like Game Discovery, whatever. I don't like most of the stuff he's writing, like, to be perfectly honest. But let's make us, does this even work? This might work in a bit. Give me a moment, not this, where is it? There it is. So, oh wait a second. Let's just do the drive search here. There are like several things that you that like he linked to where you could basically, and I think this is like from like some other developer that he shared around. And again, that's like I think still a publicly available like Google Sheet. I made a copy of it just because. Again, it might help, like especially I did this like before my appointment today with the like welfare office, just so that I could give them a rough estimation about, okay, this is how much money I can expect through the first year of the game. And so, and there are like more of these. Again, there's like another one that's like from like the publisher Fellow Traveler, that they made public, that is much more elaborate. Like why is... yeah, okay, let me just quickly close the game. That's much more elaborate, but there's basically the same, and where you can, like with some parts of it I don't understand, but you can, is it possible to zoom into this document? Is there a way for me to zoom? That would be cool, because I don't think that people can read this. How does this look on the twitch.television? Let me see. God, I need to make sure that like it's okay. The stream is muted. God, I'm seeing my own face again. I mean, yeah, it works. Okay, it should. It should work, I think. I don't know. Like, someone let me know if it's readable or not. But anyway, I can't find it, but it's like, again, in the most recent, like, Game Discovery, like, whatever newsletter, I think he linked to it, or one of the most recent ones. And I made a copy of it because, like, again, you can then, like, put your own stuff in there. So, and this is also, like, some of the numbers that, like, I have for GB Rover, by the way, or, like, how this stuff looks like. Let me just like move my face somewhere else. Like what I had, like, or what I'm estimating right now is that GB Rover is going to have 500 wish lists, like by the time the game gets released. This does not include the like a potential boost of wish lists from the Steam Next Festival, which, like, from what I've like could find and estimate, and again, estimates are like very because you don't know if the data isn't publicly available. You can, and again, it's based on like the estimations from these kinds of people that only get data from like a certain like kind of game developer usually. So it's always a bit how much it's applicable to, like, for example, smaller games. But usually, like, what you can expect is like sometimes to, like, for your wish lists to double between a Steam Next Fest, like roughly, I think it was double, I don't know. But like there's at least like some kind of increase, like a substantial increase even for smaller games. And I haven't really calculated that in because that's something that's completely like unknown for me. So I have no idea how much I should like calculate in, and I'd much rather be incredibly pessimistic about my calculations than optimistic or like closer to what it might be, because that way I can like at least I was very optimistic with Splinter Zone and it didn't go well. So I'm now going back to like, okay, I'm going by the rate of like basically wish lists I get per day for GB Rover, and it looks like I'll get around 500 by the end of like by mid-October, which frankly is okay. It's like you would need around 5,000 to get on the like Steam trending new games, whatever kind of thing, but that won't happen, and that's okay. And like the US dollar price, by the way, is going to be like $6.99. For nice reasons, also because the euro price is €5.96, and I just couldn't do it. And I was thinking about, okay, do I want to increase the price or whatever, but I did that with Splinter Zone at the beginning. I sold Splinter Zone, I think, for $10, and barely anyone bought it at launch. And it like really, really hurt my like the first year of the game. And I don't want to do this again, but I think like Splinter Zone right now is like $5, and I think that like considering that GB Rovers is overall a better game, and that it's nicer to play and all that, I think a slightly higher price than Splinter Zone is justified. For the first 30 days, I had a wishlist conversion ratio of 16%. So 16% of the wishlist that I had before the game got released converted into sales, which is lower than the basically median like of what is usually to expected. So from like other like calculations that you can find on the internet, it's usually said that you can expect between 20 and 50% conversion rate of your wish lists on like in your first like month or whatever, first month or sometimes first week. I think this thing does it like first week, like the first week is only for that one, and like a total like conversion rate of that. So again, these are like you can do it like in such a way, and you can put it in here, and then you have like, okay, 16% conversion rate overall means I'll sell 80 copies within the first month with like this price, and like this stuff gets whatever gets taken away. That means that I'll make like net like roughly $250, and then you can see with this rate I'll get like around 600 for the first year, and so on and so on. And it really depends then like how much is this and what else is there. And like I'll go with the numbers that Splinter Zone gave me, and that was like a 60% conversion rate. I personally believe that the conversion rate will be higher this time around for several reasons. First of all, I think the difference between expectations, what the game will cost, and the actual price of the game will be much closer, so more people will maybe be inclined to buy it. I also made some other mistakes with Splinter Zone in that I did an early access version of it on itch.io before I released it on Steam, where the game was only half the price of the final price of the project, which caused problems on like sites like istthereanydeal.com or whatever, where like the lowest price was being put as the early access version, and I think that might have hurt it, and other kinds of stuff. Like also like I overall, like if I do itch.io with the Steam version, I did roughly the same on itch.io in the first month of the game's release than I did on Steam. So it kind of went okay in that regard. But it hurt the visibility on Steam, and I kind of want to try this time around to push Steam as much as I can, because that's where like long term I'll get more money, even though, and that's again the shit you have to do in that situation, because you're like kind of like if you once you try and like gear like your work towards in some respect earning money, you'll end up doing stuff like this where you end up forcing the for yourself and to some degree also for customers less good platform in front, because it's the platform where you like prospectively get more like money out of. So I'm going to, this is why I'm pushing Steam more like publicly. There will be an itch.io version. I'm also thinking about doing like a special thing for the itch.io version, so that there's like something nice that people can buy if they like, because people buy on itch.io if they want to especially like support you as a developer, I feel like mostly. So I want to do something there where people, if they feel like they want to support me, get something extra out of it, to some degree. Still have to like work out the details on that. But again, like just like to see like that I don't treat itch.io as like a throwaway thing, but like its own separate thing. Also, like you won't get a Steam key when you buy the game on itch.io because of things, because I would like to do like community copies on itch.io where like people could get the game for free under certain circumstances, or like if like people buy it on a like at a higher price or whatever, I'll like put like a free copy in a public pool that people can just claim, and adding a Steam key to that whole equation will cause problems, and I don't want that. So that's kind of like the idea behind all of that. It's interesting. Again, like for me, the most difficult part in some respect is to make sure that I don't, and maybe let's just switch over to this and then at some point just stop talking, that I don't pressure myself into something that, one, makes me feel uncomfortable, and two, makes me feel like what I'm doing isn't good enough and that what I did was worthless. And that's again some of the problems in the way that a lot of the business advice for indie developers is being framed, that if you're not doing the things in this particular way, what you're doing is wasting your and everyone else's time. And again, that's something I reject completely, because it totally disregards game development as some kind of creative endeavor and like a process that people have to go through, and just thinks about it as basically like a shopping list. You have to do these things and then you get that amount of money out of it, like with this and that, like likelihood and whatever. And yeah, sure, you kind of have to do this when you're making something, kind of have to gauge, okay, will this actually be good enough for people to buy, or will this be interesting enough for people to buy? But in the end, you're like, I'm not making this like this shit to like please the market gods. Like, I'm mostly making it because I feel like this stuff needs to exist, and then I'll try to frame it in such a way that people feel inclined and motivated enough to buy it, because this is what I have to do, and it sucks. But hey, like if anyone wants to overthrow capitalism, like give me a poke and I help in some way. I can make bread. I don't know. Anyway, that's all of that. It's strange. And again, like there's this constant pressure like going on, because like a lot of like the stuff you see outside, like when you look for advice and when you look for stuff, is usually framed in a very specific way and like geared towards a very specific kind of developer. And if you're not like in this group, like it can come off as very like dismissive of your approach to this. And it's hard to always like be able to like shut yourself off on these kinds of things. So yeah, it's a process. You have to see and like do your best in that regard, and like be mindful of yourself, because otherwise, like what point does it have to know, okay, I'm making a game, like making a pixel art platform, again, from the numbers that I've seen, is a completely bad idea. Like really, like most of them don't make money. Like from whatever projections there are that exist, who knows how accurate they are, because nobody has the public, like the actual data. Like most of the time, it's like anyway. But you make the games because you feel like you have to make them, or like for GB Robot, for example, because at that point, like when I started working on it late last year, I didn't know what to do with myself, and I had like a bunch of stuff lying around where I felt like, oh, if I combine all of this, I can make a game out of it, and that would be kind of cool because I haven't done this in a while, and like it later on, like again, all this marketing stuff and all that basically got like attached to it, like when it was like, I don't know, 80% finished. And then like it all started because I realized, I mean, I could basically I'm treating this game to a large degree as an experiment to see, okay, what do I need to like make sure for my next project? And I don't mean, oh, I have to make it in a different genre. It's still going to be a platformer, but a different kind of one. Hopefully, like we'll have to see how like this idea shakes out once I start working on it, once this game's done and out. Oh God. But yeah, anyway, this has been a lot of rambling. I hope, wait a second, do I have this? No, I don't have this. Oh, doesn't matter. I hope you have a nice weekend. This has been like, again, like a very ramble stream to some degree, but like I did some stuff. I will get back to like doing stuff for the Endless Attack mode soon, probably not this weekend, but maybe next weekend. Because again, that's like something I would like to get done before the game's out. And there isn't like that much work on it left, like in terms of like making the stages, but I'd like to like get back to the like streaming some of that work like fairly soon. And yeah, like devlogs, like the videos will go back or come back next week. Because then I'll be a bit less swamped just with like appointments and stuff and like things I have to think about. So yeah, again, I hope you have a nice weekend. And please wishlist GB Robo on Steam. It would be like very cool if like all of these expectations and things I put in here are completely wrong. That would be awesome. But again, no pressure and whatever. But if you like find it interesting what I'm doing here and would like to support this work and support the game and all that kind of stuff, wishlisting it on Steam and like sharing like whatever posts I'm doing over on Twitter or whatever would help a lot. So yeah, that's that. And anyway, like aside from that, once again, have a nice weekend and I'll see you soon. Bye.